What do we got here?
This is the Bocce dual output baritone, the Leonardo Funk machine.
This is the one Sean was most excited about. For those that watch the channel, Sean was very excited to see these guitars.
Yeah.
He's a big Corey Wong fan.
Yeah, right. And so when you see Corey Wong playing a baritone guitar with the Fearless Flyers, or Mark Lettieri playing in his own solo stuff with a baritone, this is the baritone you're most likely seeing, because it actually inspired the Fearless Flyers. So Corey Wong met this guitar maker who was producing an album up in Minneapolis at the time, and asked if he could play the guitar, and he was so inspired by it, he said, we should make a band with the large, medium, and small guitars. And to this day, if you look at the credits of any of their songs, they don't say bass and baritone, they say large, medium, small.
That's really fun.
And this is the medium.
And it's funky. And it's got like a whole different setup down here than a normal guitar would have.
It does, it does. So one of the things about the evolution of guitar, which are things that we talk about, is that there hasn't been a great deal of development in the baritone area, which means there's not a support system for it. There are not baritone amps. Right, there's bass amps, there's guitar amps.
We sell baritones and people ask us what
amp should I get?
Because some work differently, they sputter,
they
kick, sometimes the 10-inch is better. You never know.
Right, exactly.
Except for this mic.
And so Bruno Bocce solved this problem by, he puts in a standard sort of Telecaster setup here for the guitar output, but there's this third pickup here, which is a bass pickup and only on the 4 lower strings. And it has its own separate output and its own volume. And the idea here is that you can actually plug into a guitar amp and a bass amp at the same time and dial in how much of that bass you want happening there.
That's smart.
When your guitar amp flubs and can't handle how low you want to go on that. I mean, there's lots of people who do play this through just a guitar amplifier, but you'll get more of a mid-range sort of punch sound out of it there, which can be really cool. But if you're hoping to get some beefy bottom end, you probably have to go past your guitar amplifier and bring in a bass amplifier along with it.
I think it's a beautiful instrument.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. And I really think that we are currently witnessing the birth of the cello in the guitar market.
Maybe because baritones have blown up. Like we work with Carlos Lopez from Casadosa.
Yes.
Have you heard of him?
Yeah, I've talked to him before.
We sell quite a few of his pieces. They sell before they get here.
Yep.
And it's amazing that wasn't really a market until 2 years ago.
Right.
And it's become this thing. It's fun. And I bought one. I never thought I'd buy a $7,000 baritone.
Yep.
But I did. I'm stupid, but I did it.
Well, there's that side. One, that we have viable baritones now. The baritones historically have been always a little bit funky. They didn't get developed a lot. They weren't taken seriously.
Down electros and
yeah, which are cool for playing
cool.
tic tac bass or something,
very
you know.
cool.
And but they're different. When I put this in people's hands, they're really inspired to play it and keep playing it. And they realize, oh, actually, I've had many people say, oh, I could write like a whole album on this. It's a different thing for me. The other part that's happening is on the modern music and extended range, we keep going 7, 8, 9, 10 string guitars, and the guitar is only so capable of going there. You know, you can't take a violin all the way down to cello range.
No.
You know, and you have to eventually just move on to a different instrument. And I think that we've developed such a big songbook around extended range, lower note stuff, that on the metal side, they're also demanding baritone. And I think we're eventually going to see, like in the string orchestra, where we will see not just a bass player and a guitar player, but also a baritone player in the band.
Well, I've enjoyed seeing the baritone not just being sort of pigeonholed into metal too. I've seen it outside with like you know Aeroposins and like the Landreths and even like all the guys from Pearl Jam are getting them, and all the guys from like these classic bands that never played them are like from Red Hot Chili Peppers. Are getting baritones, and it's a new thing, and it's not new. It's been around for decades, but it's becoming a cultural push.
Yeah.
Which I dig.
Yeah, me too. And so we actually have 3 of these on tour, 3 different variations of it, and
that's the one I thought was the coolest.
Yeah, that's why
they're all
here.
really cool.
This is your house. You get to choose.
I get to pick. Okay, Jamie, what do we have here?
All right. So this is the Avo 1. 1 because every single model they make is unique. So I shouldn't say model they make. This is the model, is the one, but they never make the same aesthetic twice.
So every piece is entirely different.
So the body's the same.
Yes.
But the aesthetic changes every single time. So they are made in Portugal, where port wine comes from, with an industrial design company called Everythink, who literally designs airplanes through to cork mats for IKEA. Like, they're just great thinkers. And when they apply their mind towards something, they go really deep and do a fantastic job with it. And this is a carbon fiber guitar. Carbon fiber because as a mechanical engineer, you don't like variables. You want to reduce the amount of variation you can have, and carbon fiber is a known variable. So, but they didn't make it like other carbon fiber guitars. So most people use carbon fiber as a wood replacement. We build it just kind of like a wood guitar there.
Correct.
But they actually orient the grain and thickness and areas throughout the guitar to allow the energy to move in certain areas and restrict it in others, so you get a real enjoyable guitar
I particularly
experience.
do not like carbon fiber guitars, which is funny that when you handed me this one, I sat and lingered with it for a while, not plugged in, and it's a great playing guitar. It sounds great acoustically.
Yes. It's as ridiculous as it sounds, it does that guitar thing. You know, that when we pick up a guitar, we give it something and it gives back.
I enjoyed that.
And then you enjoy the conversation, right? Back and forth.
And it has a truss rod.
It does. So carbon fiber is not going to move. But people, guitar players, were freaked out by the fact it didn't have a truss rod. I guess they couldn't trust...
It's almost like we live in the past.
Yeah. And so they actually put a truss rod in it. But we kind of joke about it as people's emotional support truss rod.
I still use tube amps. Jamie doesn't believe in tube amps anymore.
I have a tube amplifier.
No, he thinks we should always plug into lunch boxes.
I have a tube amplifier from North Carolina.
You have a car?
No, I have a little Walter.
Oh, yeah, he's right down the street. He's about 15 minutes from here.
Is Phil? I've been to his house, but
Phil, he's 15 minutes up the road.
I didn't know that.
Small world, right?
Yeah. So I have a...
He doesn't ever play it, though. He just plays, he plugs into little digital things.
He thought he knew me. I have a 50-watt, single volume, single tone, 112.
Is it in the truck?
No, it's in my living room.
Okay. That is your living room, isn't it?
No.
I thought you
we rent that when we're on tour. I don't live in an RV.
I was hoping you just lived in it. It's like, son, we're going home again. He's like, Dad, I hate us.
I live in a nice little cottage on a lake. My son lives in France. He's married.
What?
Yeah.
He lives in France for real?
Yeah, I'm a grandpa. I had my first grandchild.
Seriously?
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Grandfather, all the things I'm learning. I just asked my carbon fiber guitar, and now I know he has grandkids.
I'm just letting you know I'm not in your box, Baxter.
I am.
So carbon fiber, really wonderful, inspiring instrument. Each piece is a unique piece within the model, let's say.
Okay.
And one of the things I really love about this is when you move away from a material. Now, mahogany is a wonderful tone wood. I love it. It sounds great. One of the main reasons we use it is so easy to work with and carve away. However, the fact that it's so easy to carve away means they're also pretty susceptible to breaking. Yeah. So we keep that neck joint pretty thick because the material needs it.
Yes.
But this neck joint is so clean and minimal because with carbon fiber, you don't have to bulk it up to keep it strong.
That's funny.
So you can make it how it can feel. And people who make them without this bump, you feel like your hand goes too far, right? So they leave a bump.
Again, it's just built for us old folks that are used to something.
Yeah, habits, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, anyways, that's one of my favorite features of this guitar. Is
the whole thing's
simple as
beautiful.
it might seem. Yeah. So that's Ava guitars. The Ava one. Yeah.
Give me this guitar. Give it to us. Break it down.
So this is an Aristides guitar. They're built in Amsterdam. It was part of a university science project where they made an exoskeleton and decided to inject it with acoustic foam. So can we build materials, sustainable materials that aren't wood necessarily, and can we make it in a way where it becomes musical, right? And that's a big part of the conversation right now, is what does that look like down the road? And so especially when we're talking about design, right? Because we're talking so much about user experience and user design in general, that development has really moved. And so I think that there is certain archaicness to natural materials. And there's people who want to understand what result they're going to get before it's strung up.
No, because I'm one of those people that I like this sort of mystery and discovery of like, I don't know what's going to sound like.
Sure.
Like, and I enjoy that when I order like a Fender custom shop.
Yeah.
I pick out the woods. I have a master builder doing it. I don't know exactly how it's going to sound.
Right.
This is different.
Yeah.
But it's also, this guitar is so well built when I played it, I didn't know until I'm holding it, looking at it right now, that it was a fan fret.
Right.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a traditional guitar. And
All right. Let's see if I can change your mind right now.
about what?
Fan frets.
Bad or good?
I'm on a mission to get rid of the term fan fret.
Okay, go
It's
for
a
it.
misnomer.
Go, tell me.
So it's multi-scale,
Cool.
and because it's multi-scale, you have to
But would
put
that
the
not
frets in those
would that not
positions.
be a fan fret then?
Sure it is.
Is that what we call it?
It
just wanna
is what
change
people
that?
normally call it, but the problem is
Okay.
they think it's about the frets when it's actually about multi-scale. So
Got it.
lower strings, lower notes benefit from a longer scale, which is why a bass
Correct.
is longer than a guitar is. If you look at the violin family, right, the violin, viola, cello, bass, each one of them has a certain tonal range, and you require a certain size of string length and tension to achieve the ideal sound. If that's true on a large scale, it's true on a smaller scale. Pianos, harps, many instruments are multi-scale. And so I don't think that a parallel fret guitar will exist 400 years from now, because it's actually, one, they don't intonate properly, and two, there's compromises on the evenness of
I mean,
tonality.
they
and
definitely do
strings
not
across
intonate
tension.
properly.
Right.
I mean, you can
Yeah,
see
yeah.
the RST saddles on the Telecaster are really trying hard, but that's a fixed bridge system.
Yeah, we
that
have a fundamental problem. If you
know.
drew lines on an upright bass or on a violin as to where everything was, they would not line up like this.
Right.
But we try. It's just an outdated mechanical function, and this is correcting that mechanical function. And for that reason, I think that it will end up being the future. I mean,
Darn
I said
you,
400 years
I'm
from now.
still gonna
I didn't
drive
say
my
6
gas
months. I
car.
didn't say 6 years from now.
I want that muscle car.
Yeah. But I mean, the younger people won't be attached to that muscle car, and they won't be attached to
I
parallel
hear you.
frets either. And so, but the thing is, if you sit down with a multi-scale guitar and just play and don't think about it,
I didn't know it was
they
one.
don't get in the way. They really don't, because your hand naturally kind of goes this way and that way anyway.
You're going to call it multi-scale. I'm going to call it fanny fret.
You can call it fanny fret because that's funny, and I'm okay with that. I'm more okay with funny than ignorance.
Are you trying to call me ignorant now too?
No, no, but you were. But so was I.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a cool guitar. It plays
Now
great.
you're educated.
Rock on. Next guitar.
Yeah. So
Special.
this is a really unique piece that we have from Joy Guitars, which are made on Victoria Island in Canada. And this is, it's such an interesting guitar to talk about, because there's this, seemingly tragic situation where Jimi Hendrix's childhood home, the one that we've all seen the picture of him as a kid holding a red guitar outside of
Yes.
a house in Seattle. That house was owned by a part of the Hendrix family that unfortunately couldn't maintain it. And it was caught up in this legal battle with the city of Seattle. People wanted it to be bought and turned into a museum. It didn't happen, and the house was torn down. But they were able to salvage, the Hendrix Foundation were able to take materials from it.
Okay.
And commission objects to be made to be mini museums, if you will. And this guitar, the soundboard is actually made from the baseboards in Jimi Hendrix's childhood bedroom. And the neck on it is made from the floorboards of his family living room, the family room. So the quilted
pretty
mahogany
amazing.
was not in his house.
No, that'd be a strange thing. That was the
That would be
kitchen.
a strange thing. Yeah. And then, of course, there's other more normal guitar materials in here. But every guitar that Ruben makes is a story, a narrative. So he never just makes a guitar. Everything has a unique contribution to it, a collaboration with someone, unique materials and such. And so this is an interesting piece, and it's a rare piece, and it's a way of maintaining a piece of the Jimi Hendrix heritage and
Well,
history.
it's very special. It's like the
Yeah.
El Macombo Strat that was made by Ron Thorne, like last year, up in another Canadian sort of build.
Yeah.
But this is more special, and the name is Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, the Hendrix Foundation. You can see on the back of the headstock here that there's a Hendrix Foundation stamp on it.
Well, if you're a guitar player at all, Jimi Hendrix is the god. So you're the god that walked on these floorboards.
Right.
Special.
Yeah. So.
reminds me a lot of Derek's nightclub's bathroom.
Yes.
And by that, I mean this looks a lot like Basquiat.
Yes. Basquiat is actually one of Adriano Sergio's favorite artists. I know that we've had that conversation.
We were talking about it. I was like, when we were walking through, I was like, that guitar looks like a Basquiat. I mean, and then it turns out I was not just speaking out of my rumpus.
No, you weren't. Yeah.
But, sometimes I am.
Yeah. So this is an Aragon guitar, an Isaurus. Every one of his guitars is hand carved, and I don't mean the neck. It is also, but I mean the body shape. You'll never see two that are the same, because he's literally kind of finding the guitar within that piece of wood, and the lines and the carves.
It
and
feels
you'll
like
see
a Fabergé egg.
The details.
It does. It doesn't feel like a normal guitar by any stretch.
Yeah.
It feels like a piece of playable art.
Yes, and I think that is the point. And the guitar has. I talk a lot about the guitar becoming an icon of contemporary culture that's sort of exceeded the bounds of its utility. And what I mean is, it's much more than 6 strings and a wooden plank. At this stage, we build hotels in its shape in Miami, right? Like there's restaurants. They put it in windows of little girls' clothing stores to let you know that store is cool. Right. It's an icon. It means something else. And so as a result, we express ourselves also through the guitar, not just with music, but visually, and we express different ideas with it because it means something to us, right?
Beautiful.
And so,
what does this guitar do?
Well, this is he thinks of it like a jazz archtop.
That's what I was thinking of it. It looks like a modern age archtop. This is what I was hoping Andy Powers would come up with in a weird way, because he's an archtop guy.
Yes.
I want to see stuff like a little bit more out of the realm of normal.
Yeah, I don't know. I had never heard of Andy Powers before Taylor, so I don't know what we're going to hear from him yet.
He's a monster player, and he loves his archtop. So
yeah,
stay tuned.
Well, great. The thing is, the archtop guitar has a very defined songbook about it, and every archtop maker I know right now doesn't want it to be called a jazz guitar, because you don't just have to play jazz.
No, I get it.
But the music that was made on this guitar really became the jazz movement, and the songbook has been closed. We've explored all those ideas for the most part, and so that movement has been closed. You're talking about art. When we move from the Nouveau period to the Deco period, and we explore Cubism, whatever it happens to be, it's people with an idea. They explore the idea and talk about it until it's exhausted, and then there's nothing more to say about it. And that's when we start to say, there's no good music anymore. It all starts to sound the same. It's because we've explored all the ideas. There isn't anything more to say on that topic. And so with the archtop guitar, there's people like Ken Parker and Megan Wells, Tyler Wells, Adriano Sergio doing this, Claudio Pagelli. These people are making really interesting archtop guitars, and they were hoping that people will make new music on them.
Side note, have you heard of Charlie Hunter?
Yeah.
Do you work with him at all?
I don't work with him
I wasn't
directly.
sure, because I need to get some of your guitars in his hands.
I've seen him play live.
He's phenomenal.
For sure, yeah.
He lives in this world of weird and new.
Well, I'll be in New York in a couple of days.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where Charlie used to be based anyway.
No,
so
he's actually
there.
based an hour and a half from here.
Oh, from here?
In Greensboro, I believe.
In Greensboro?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
I think so. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, when you start...
We'll edit this out if I'm wrong.
Yeah, when you start to make money with music, you realize maybe it's not worth playing for an apartment in New York anymore.
Yeah, I'm getting out of the city.
You can make a much nicer
That's what I did. I had to
in
leave.
Greensboro. Yeah. This is a Willem Engström guitar. It's made in Stockholm, Sweden. And Willem has this really great combination of American roots with clean Scandinavian design. He didn't want to put an F-hole in this, so he made his own design pattern here, which I think is really clean and beautiful.
It's beautiful.
The neck, the headstock, this has a strong V in the back of the neck.
It's a solid neck too.
But it feels great,
It
doesn't
does feel great.
Yeah, it's not one of those V's where you're like, I don't know if I like this or not.
I'm a V lover though, so
Yeah.
because again, I have that archaic love to like the old 30s Gibsons.
Yes.
And I love that feel.
Right. Well, as you can see, it's a smaller body than something like a traditional dobro or a National Resophonic guitar. This one has a biscuit bridge in it, so the single cone and a mini humbucker with a volume tone, and there's a piezo in there also. And so it's a really wonderful instrument. I find it super inspiring. I don't own any Resophonic guitars yet.
Yeah. I don't know
But this makes me want to take it
either.
home.
I'd rather have that than a 12 string right now. Less strings.
It's super, super cool.
Super cool.
And so, and frankly, as far as the Boutique Guitar Showcase is concerned, it's very affordable. Our average guitar is somewhere around 10K, and this guitar I think is in around the 3,000 mark.
It's for the lowly poor folk can have this guitar.
There was a moment where I think Sean Hammond from Premier had come through the Summer NAMM booth, and and they had this thing where they were all sitting around at the end of the day talking about guitars, and he said, I saw this guitar at Jamie Gale's booth, and it was really affordable. I said, okay, it was really affordable for a Jamie Gale guitar because it was also about $3,000. And
well, it's disturbing that is affordable in our mindsets now.
Well, listen, if you make a guitar and you live in Stockholm, and you have a family to feed, and you make 20 guitars a year. I mean, how much is 20 guitars times 3,000 minus materials and anything else?
Right.
You're broke.
Yeah.
Selling at 3,000. You're not rich selling guitars at $3,000 if you live in Stockholm.
But that's why you can't get boutique guitars usually for that price.
Yeah, exactly.
You can get, I have a made in Mexico guitar for $1,800 now.
Right.
Fender.
And I teach at the guitar making school in Stockholm, and Willem still teaches there.
Really?
Also, and that's part of the income. So he's teaching and making guitars inside. But he loves this sort of early 20th century kind of guitar, and he plays in that way also. And it's there's these little pockets of that sort of roots music. Although there's a pocket of it actually in Indonesia also, where you'll find these Indonesian guys sitting wailing old blues songs.
Playing
so they're great
roots songs.
Yeah. And so it's interesting the export of the culture that way. So
that's so funny.
Anyways, this is one of those guitars. Hang on a second here.
Okay,
there's another topic here
because
we talk about intentional design and design sort of failures that have unintended consequences, and the Les Paul is one of those. Les Paul was made for the jazz market, that they never accepted it.
Like the Jazz Master was made for the jazz market, became the indie rock icon.
The last guitar Leo ever designed for Fender was a Jazz Master. He seemed to still be looking to legitimize himself. Right, with the establishment, right?
And that in Hawaiian music, he really wanted that sort of mantle which he had.
Yeah, and so the Resophonic guitar is another one of those examples where this was made as a jazz guitar to be heard over the horns, right, as a solo guitar. They were looking for a solution to make a guitar loud enough to solo in a brass band, right? And so they did make a louder guitar, but guitar players still didn't want to play it because it didn't sound the same, it didn't feel the same. Mm-hmm. And so it takes a player to pick up this instrument and say, well, this makes me do something different. I find that inspiring. And then they start to build music and develop a songbook over it for it to gain success. But because it didn't gain success at that time, they were cheap. And they were bought by poor people in the Appalachian Mountains, poor people in the Mississippi Delta, because they were undesirable guitars. Right. And they made bluegrass and they made Delta blues on these instruments, and they developed a songbook that now we all love. But nobody associates this with ragtime jazz.
No.
But that's where it was invented.
It was the blues.
And the thing I love about the guitar is those new ideas that seem sometimes insane, like a metal body guitar with an aluminum cone in it. Is a little nuts when you're used to playing a wooden guitar, right, with strings.
No,
that was nuts. That was very steampunk. That was very industrial.
Well, it does look like a steampunk instrument, it's
right?
Like the Bauhaus just entered the world a little bit.
Yeah, but now we love it, and the thing is, we love it and we decide. The guitar is the people's instrument, and the people always decide what's going to happen with the guitar and whether or not we're going to make music with it, and that legitimizes every one of them.
Well, I remember a few years ago, it's 2016, I believe, when everyone thought the guitar market was over. It was done. It was in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. The head guitar guys would say, it's done, and then the explosion happened again.
Yeah.
We never sold more guitars in the history of mankind.
So that guy who wrote that article came to the very first boutique guitar showcase. George Gruen brought him into our booth.
I remember talking with George about this before the article came out.
Yeah.
George and I got in a nice little fight over it. Because I disagree with him. It was a
I
good
love
fight.
fights with George, actually.
No,
it's not personal.
He'll forget more than I'll ever know.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
Yeah. But so George brought him by the boutique guitar showcase to say, is the guitar really dead? Look at this. And the guy ignored it and didn't write anything about it. But but that's okay. That's okay.
In the world.
You know. But the thing is, the guitar has continually evolved since its inception. The modern guitar in 1850 with Antonio Torres. The first 100 years, there was more than 10 distinct variations we still make today,
Right.
including this one. Right?
Pretty crazy.
And it doesn't stop. And so the thing is, people just get used to what they know and they think that's normal. But because the guitar has never stopped and continues to evolve, the only reasonable conclusion is that it will continue to change and it will not stay the same. If you think it's going to stay the same, that's a big gamble.
Talk to 1954, though. It's still tricky.
Oh, for that style of music.
Right. Don't get me wrong.
But
I think in the future, like let's say 400 years from now,
Yeah.
if we're talking about the history of rock and roll, probably the only rock and roll band will, if let's say rock and roll's gone,
Yeah.
the Beatles is the only band we'll remember. We'll say that name.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Elvis's name will be heard in the echoes, but it's a scary thought.
But so when we look at the nylon string guitar, what do we call it?
Classical.
When we look at an archtop guitar with F-holes, what do we call it?
Jazz.
Right. I think we're just going to call the Les Paul the rock guitar. And it will eventually be a guitar that is played for a certain style of music, which it currently is.
Rock.
But most of those people will die, and there will be a certain amount of people who will continue on with it. And they will reenact the moment. They will reenact their heroes, and it will be cosplay that's no different than a Civil War reenactment or, going to Comic-Con.
Maybe.
Yeah, I know those are fighting words. I know.
I disagree.
You can edit that out if you want.
No, I'm going to keep it in there. I don't think that'll be the case.
Yeah.
But
It's okay. Every symphony orchestra,
I like that, though.
99.9% of the music played in every symphony orchestra around the world is from 4 composers.
I know.
It's a reenactment.
No, well, I think...
And if someone pulls out a 175 at the cafe, you are almost certainly guaranteed you're going to hear jazz. You'll be shocked if you don't.
It's funny.
Why should it be anything different for the music that you're thinking about?
Well, I don't know. With classical music is such a strange anomaly, too. I look at that whole thing as struggling to survive entirely. Sad.
But you feel that way here. You go to Europe, you don't feel that way. When I go to guitar making school in Europe, they teach them how to make a violin, how to make an upright bass, a classical guitar, and a Martin.
Yeah, but I live here, so that's why I do. I live in the classical.
But there's a lot of people
I play
over there.
classical guitar.
You do?
That was sort of my...
That's tough.
No, I did. That's
all of your peers are hoping to trip on the way up to
conservatory. I did all this stuff. I love it. I studied in Austria.
Yeah.
At the Mozarteum. I dig it. But I see, even when I was there, I saw it, but it was... The orchestras aren't the same. It's still there, but it's not alive in the same way. It is...
Well, it's a reenactment. So there's not the initial spark energy there. There's not the entrepreneurship. There's not the creativity that's there.
Well, just the delivery of music is so different now, too.
Yeah.
I mean, back when classical music was created, it was created as only the wealthy could hear it until it started to go out and disperse across the crowds, and Mozart's trying to make it a people's instrument or music. Mm-hmm. But it's different. Now we have music for the masses in a different way.
But the influence of classical music exists in all of the things that you're hearing today.
Oh, I agree. Sonata form is pop music.
Yeah. I think of a Ray Charles live album where he starts off with Mozart, I think. And then he transitions into one of his own pieces. But it's there.
You said modern music like Ray Charles?
Well, if you're thinking about Mozart.
If we go in the whole, isn't that funny though?
But how far away is Ray Charles from Mozart?
God, if we start going history, I'm not going to go deep.
It's okay, but timeline. How many different musics were made sort of between those, right? And so there is something different there. And Ray Charles deserves to be said in a sentence with Mozart, as far as I'm concerned. It's the R&B culture comes from
I love
Ray
R&B.
Charles.
I grew up on Otis Redding. That's my man.
Yeah.
All day, every day.
You got me on that one.
The Memphis Horns.
Yeah.
Otis.
If I could keep one voice the rest of my life to listen to, it'd have to be Otis any time of day.
On that note, I'm going home. I'm going to play some guitars now. Stay tuned. Click like, subscribe. Jamie from the Boutique Guitar Showcase.
Yes.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thank you, Baxter.
We solved all the problems of the world. All of them.